Hello history scholars, Mrs. Olson here. Today's video lesson is titled Conquest in the Americas. So let's begin with our learning target, which reads that you will be able to understand the short and long-term effects of the Spanish on the people of the Americas. So make sure that you have pen and paper handy. You are recording important information, pausing when you need to, and interacting whenever possible so that all of this great historical information stays in your brain. Here we go. The first slide is titled First Encounters in the Americas. So we're going to start with Christopher Columbus. Now, the note says that the first meeting with Native Americans, oh yes, and I am going to abbreviate. So we're going to be talking about Native peoples fairly often during this video lesson. So I am going to abbreviate Native Americans by using capital N and a capital A, Native Americans, okay? So this first meeting with Columbus begins this cycle, right? Cycle goes over and over and over again. This cycle of encounter, conquest, and death. So the Europeans go in, they take over the peoples, and unfortunately the native peoples die. And we're going to figure out why they often die, okay? So this one says, throughout the Americas, the conquistadors from Spain, so these are the Spanish explorers at Conquest, they take over, they are seizing. Seizing means to take. They're not asking, they're taking Native American gold. And this process of conquest is often I want to use the word force on purpose, okay? The Spanish are forcing Native Americans to convert to Christianity. So they're not teaching them. They are not doing it in a peaceful way. They're making them convert to Christianity, to Catholicism. So they're not doing it nicely. They're they are threatening them if they do not convert. Okay, so here is a painting that shows, and let me make this just a little bit bigger. Sorry guys, hold on. Well, what I was trying to do was show you the text on the bottom, and what it is, it's talking about that these are Jesuit missionaries, so Catholic missionaries that are forcing the natives to convert. And you can tell that the priests and the conquistadors, they have very powerful stances. They're actually above the Native Americans, and the Native Americans are in these types of poses where they are being made and forced to do things. Okay, so this slide is titled Guns, Horses, and Disease. So what you have are the Spanish conquistadors that have their guns and their cannons, and this really is an overpowering David versus Goliath type of match for the Native Americans, who are only using and only have arrows and spears. They can't compete with the guns and the cannons. Okay? So whereas the Native Americans have no metal armor, the Spanish conquistadors do, which helps to protect them against the arrows and the spears. And in battle, the Spanish are using horses, which help them to carry supplies. And once again, the Native Americans have none of these. Okay? And with them, the Spanish brought smallpox, measles, and influenza, so the flu. And the Native Americans had no immunity against these diseases. So when we're talking about this cycle of encounter, conquest, and death, here it is. They have come to the Americas, they conquest, they take over them, and many of them die in battle, and obviously diseases for which they have no immunities to. Okay, and to give you a statistic of the Native American population decreasing, this shows that the Native American population decreases 90% by the 1500s. So hardly any Native Americans are left after the Spanish conquistadors arrive in South America. Okay, so here are some photos, or some pictures rather. Whoops, let's go back. Let's try this again. Okay, there's the picture that I wanted to show you. Okay, so here is a battle, and here is one that portrays the disease that was brought in by the Spanish. All right, so here's another Spanish conquistador, and it is Hernan Cortes. So Cortes conquers Mexico. So Hernan Cortes happens to be a landowner in Cuba. So he went from Spain, he settled in Cuba where he has plantations, and then he decides that he wants to join this conquest of South America, and he lands on the coast of Mexico in 1519. So I know that Mexico isn't necessarily South America, but he's going to make his way into South America. Okay. Now, the Aztecs are the large group of people that were native to present-day Mexico, and their capital is called Tenochtitlan. Okay, and so let's introduce this new person, and she happens to be a Native American slave, actually, that the Aztecs took over. They actually took over her peoples. Anyways, her name is Malinche, and she is a translator between the Aztecs and the Spanish with Cortes. Okay. Now, Malinche, because she was actually made to be a slave and the Aztecs took over her peoples, she helps Cortes to arrange alliances with peoples that were conquered by the Aztecs. Okay, so this is a painting that shows you this relationship that Malinche had with Cortes. So this is her. This is Cortes, and here she is being a translator between the Aztecs and... Okay, so this slide is titled Moctezuma Faces a Dilemma. So let's get into his dilemma. One sec. So Moctezuma was the Aztec emperor, and there are these rumors that this white person may be an Aztec god. So he thought perhaps that Cortes was an Aztec god. He wasn't sure. But you have to remember the time period. These Native Americans, the Aztecs, they had never seen the likes of white people before. And so they're not sure where they come from, what they want. And so maybe in their minds that this is actually an Aztec god come to interact with them. So what Moctezuma decides to do is play nice, right? He is not going to put up a fight against these white peoples if they are Aztec gods. So he sends them gifts, but he tells them that they are not allowed to go to the capital city. Okay. Now, Cortes, remember, he's a rich landowner in Cuba, and he wants in on all of the riches to be found in Central and South America. So this says that Cortes is very interested in the gold and the silver ornaments that Moctezuma sends him. So here Moctezuma is trying to play nice, and Cortes, who is a greedy Spaniard, is wanting more and more, and not just the gifts that Moctezuma gives him. Okay. So here is a picture of Moctezuma and Tenochtitlan. I've got a whole bunch of these. I think it's kind of a cool city the way that it was laid out. This is an Aztec god that Moctezuma thinks might be Cortes. Okay. And so this is a map, obviously, showing you the Aztec lands. We'll take a look at it. And here is where Tenochtitlan was. Present-day Mexico City is actually built on top of the old Aztec capital city. Okay, and I want to move me just for a second to show you that this was a map of Tenochtitlan, and then you can see that it's kind of, the perspective is an overview of this ancient capital city. So look to see that Tenochtitlan was built on this waterway, and you can see in this picture all of the water that the city was built on and around. Okay, here is another one. Get rid of me again. Sorry, guys. To show you the vastness of the city and that it was built on top of the waterway. And we can go to the next one. And this is just another one to be able to show you how grand and how large and how rich the capital city was for the Aztecs. This is present day, so you can see, I thought this was kind of a cool view, you can see that the ruins are still there and you can visit them if you go to Mexico City. Okay, so unfortunately what happens is that this ancient capital city of the Aztecs, it falls to the Spanish, and the Spanish imprison the Aztec emperor Moctezuma. Okay, Cortes actually forces him to sign his lands and his treasures to the Spanish. So some of you might say, well, gosh, why didn't he just sign it? Well, if you have a gun put to your head and your family is threatened, you might sign the piece of paper too. And then other Spanish conquistadors started to arrive to challenge Cortes. So people get greedy. Money often makes people greedy. Golds, riches, they're making them greedy. So Cortes is only one of the conquistadors that come to the Americas to take over. And this says that the Aztecs drove the Spanish out, but Moctezuma dies. I know you can't see that, but the last word is Moctezuma dies. Okay, so this is a continuation of that previous slide. Cortes retreats. Remember that people are after him, and he plans an assault. And then in 1521, Cortes and Indian allies capture and demolish this beautiful city. The Spanish later rebuild Mexico City on top of the ruins like you just saw, and I've got some more photographs that show you, if you were to go to Mexico City, how you can still see some of them. Okay, and remember about our cycle of encounter, conquest, and death. So specifically in Tenochtitlan, smallpox had spread from the 1519 encounter and completely wiped out this population of Aztecs. Okay, guys, here is I forget the name of the cathedral, forgive me, but this is a famous cathedral in Mexico City, and right across the street is an Aztec ruin from Tenochtitlan. I think that stuff's pretty cool. And here's another view, so the same cathedral, and this is kind of the back of that same ruin. So here's another Spanish conquistador, and he is named Pizarro, and so he goes down to Peru in South America. So Francisco Pizarro, to give you context, he is in the Americas in 1532, and he also establishes Indian allies. Atahualpa is an Incan ruler who had taken the throne from his brother in a civil war, okay? And he refuses to become one of the Spanish vassals, so he doesn't want to become part of the Spanish Empire, even though they kind of offer him a deal. And he will not become a Christian. He will not become a Catholic, okay? So what Pizarro does is he captures Atahualpa, and then he kills thousands and thousands of Incas. And so the rest of that note, I'm sorry you can't see it, says thousands of Incas. Remember, if you ever need to pause the video lesson, it is completely okay so that you can record the important information. Okay, so here is Pizarro. Francisco Pizarro, and here is a painting of Atahualpa. Okay. So this one says that the Spanish demands a huge ransom for Atahualpa. Now the Incas pay it, but they kill Atahualpa anyways. And as we saw with the Aztecs, the Incas are no match for the Spanish because of the Spanish might. Right? The Spanish might. Right? That's what I meant to say. So the arrows and the spears versus the guns and the cannons. And of course, the Native Americans have no immunity to the Spanish diseases. So Spanish forces surge across Ecuador and Chile, and I'll give you a map in just a second. And then what happened to Pizarro was that he was killed by another group of Spanish after he establishes the capital city of Lima in Peru. Okay, so here is Pizarro's expeditions, and you can see that these are different years. Okay, and there we are at the end of encounters in the Americas. So, if you guys have questions, please ask. I hope you learned a whole bunch. Talk to you guys later. Bye!